Welcome back to another Flash video tutorial. Once again, I'm going to get started by creating a new ActionScript 3.0 document. This video is going to cover gradients and the gradient transform tool. So to begin, I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle with a black fill and no stroke on my stage. So now that I have that, let's go ahead and give this a gradient. So we know about our preset gradients like the rainbow or the white to black, but how do we create our own? Well, to do that, you need to go into the colors window. So there's a little color palette looking icon at the top right. You can just click on it and it'll expand this window. Or if you can't find that, go under window, color, and then that'll pop up for you. So here we have a bunch of options. Let me just explain some things really quick. So on the very top left of this, we have basically an indicator saying we're working with fill and not stroke. So you click on stroke, you'd be working with stroke. You click on fill, you'd be working with fill. The next part is what type of gradient. So we can have none, which just means nothing, solid color, which just means one solid color, and then I'll get to the two different types of gradients in just a second. So previously, you know how to change the color, right? If I were to select this rectangle, go to my color window, here I'll change this to solid color, and I can pick a color, say red, or I can go ahead and pick a color and then go to my paint bucket tool. You see now that my color is blue that I just selected, and then click, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and create a linear gradient. You can see by default it's trying to create a black to white gradient for me, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. So I'm going to click with my paint bucket tool, and now you see I have a gradient that goes from black to white. But let's say I didn't like black to white and I wanted to make it blue to red. I'm going to click on this square here, which is basically my color sample, and I double click, and now I can actually pick a color. So I'm going to change it to blue, and then I'm going to double click on the white one and change it to red. So now I have a blue to red linear gradient. So I go in my paint bucket tool, click on my rectangle, fading from blue to red. But let's say I wanted to throw in some other color, like I'm going for the American flag, right? Just go ahead and right under this, basically this example of what your gradient is going to look like, or even on it, there you get a plus icon next to your arrow. If you just go ahead and click, it drops in another color sample wherever you clicked, and it tries to create a color that was being generated at that instance of it. So it's giving me this purple color right in the middle. But I'm going for the American flag, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to white by just double clicking on that. And now I have blue, white, and red. Well, we want red, white, and blue, right? Well, I'm just going to click on this red square and drag it around, and click on the blue square and drag it around. So that way we're going from red to white to blue. Now if I go on my paint bucket tool, you can see in the bottom left I have my red, white, and blue gradient. And click OK, and bam, now we've got red, white, and blue. So that's how you change those colors. The color picker works the same as pretty much any other color picker, you've ever worked with, or especially in Flash. Now there's a couple options called flow, and right now if I change any of these, you're not going to see any difference in what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it on the option called extend color, which is this first one. And I'm going to go to my free transform tool on the top left. I'm going to hold down the left mouse button, and underneath it we have the gradient transform tool. So if I were to go ahead and click on my rectangle now, I get these icons here. So I can move the gradient around. So I can move it from left to right, right to left, whichever way I want. If I use the center point, it's giving me that translate icon. I can rotate it if I click on this circle in the corner here, so I can rotate it to be a certain angle, face the other way, whatever I want to do. And I can shrink and expand it. So, oops, let me undo that. So I can shrink and expand the way the gradient works. So even though my rectangle goes out all the way here, I'm just saying fade from red to white to blue within these two blue lines that I'm moving around here. But right now, actually, my rectangle wasn't in extend color mode. It was in actually reflected color mode. So I'm going to go ahead, make sure I have extend color selected. I go to my paint bucket tool and I'm going to paint on this now. So now if I go back to my gradient transform tool, which is right here underneath my free transform tool, and I change this back, you can see now it's not repeating at all. It's just going red, white, blue. Then anything after that, it's just saying, yeah, we don't care about that very much. But if I were to go into, and I'm going to select this rectangle, I'm going to go into my color, my colors window so I can change the gradient again. I'm going to change from extend color to reflect color. And what reflect color is going to do, it's going to create, let me go back into my gradient transform tool to show you. It's creating red, white, blue, and then it's reflecting blue, white, red. So it's going from here, we're going red, white, blue, blue, white, red. And if you go the opposite direction, it's going blue, white, red, red, white, blue. So just imagine it's a mirror and it's reflecting it on the edges, starting at the edges from where you put, I guess, the edge of your gradient. So the other option is, where is it? It is repeat color. So instead of reflecting it, it's just going red, white, blue, red, white, blue, red, white, blue. So those are the three types of flow you can have for a gradient. But let's say I didn't want straight lines. Let's say I wanted a circular gradient. If you noticed in our pre-generated gradients, we have circles. So I can either go ahead and select that there, or under this drop-down menu, I can change it from linear to radial. And radial is basically a circle. Imagine radius of a circle. So we have our fade from white to black now. I'm going to add another color. I'm going to just put red in the middle. So it's going white, red, and then black. You can see because I have it selected, it's actually changing as I change it up here. And basically, the gradient transform tool works pretty similar to how it does with the linear gradients. With the radial gradients, we have a couple more options. We have this white triangle here in the middle, and we can actually slide this around to kind of offset the center point of our gradient. Or we can actually move the center point of the gradient if we click on the white circle in the middle. So I'm just going to Control Z to undo and put that all back. Make sure I'm in my gradient transform tool. I'm going to go ahead and click. And the three other options here are, one, we have this square with an arrow in it, and that just lets us make an oval type shape. So I'm just clicking and dragging, and now you can see I can either shrink or expand my my radial gradient into an oval. But let's say I want the oval to be vertical instead of horizontal. Well, on the very bottom right in this instance, there's a circle, and it has a completely filled black triangle in it. If you click on that, you'll get these arrows going in a circle that represent rotation. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to rotate, and now I have a radial gradient that's the shape of a vertical oval. But let's say I didn't really like that oval too much, so I'm going to drag it back down. Or maybe, yeah, I'll drag it back down so it's a circle again. And now, let's say I think my circle's too small or it's too big. Well, the icon that I haven't gone over, which is the one in the middle, it's a circle with an arrow in it. If you click on it and you drag it around, you can actually change how big your the radius of your circle is. So if I make it really big, the circle of my gradient is very large, or I can make it very small. You see how that works. So now though, if I go back into my colors window, underneath flow, if I change to reflect color, it makes this smaller so you can see what's actually happening. So you see it's going white, red, black, black, white. Sorry, so it's going white, red, black, black, red, white, white, red, black, and it's reflecting it over and over again. Versus if I go into repeat color, it's just going white, red, black, white, red, black, white, red, black. Now you're getting to see this kind of shape that pretty much reminds me of the old Looney Tunes introductions or the outros, whatever you want to call them. One quick thing that I forgot to mention, if you go under your colors window, if you added a color and you're trying to get rid of it, all you have to do is click on the color sample and then drag it away and it will disappear. Something I just forgot to mention. That sums it up for the most part about Gradient Transform Tool. If you want to make custom gradients, you got to go under your colors window. Your options are none, solid color, linear gradient, and radial gradient. Don't worry about bitmap fill. If you want to add a color, you just click underneath here, and then you double click on the actual color, change it to whatever color you want. You can slide them around by clicking and dragging. And if you need to manipulate the actual gradient, under the free transform tool, gradient transform, and then you have all these options to play around with. So that's about it, and I'll see you in the next video.